For this program, what did storytelling mean to you, and how has that definition changed over the past few weeks of the program?
So before this program, I'm a writer and director primarily, and before this, I mainly focused on shorts, and I was writing my first feature, and I think my evolution of the perspective of the stories we share through this program, through all of the mentors and all the one-on-one, we really got to speak with people who actively work in the industry and people who are actively telling the stories that we want to tell. So I guess to answer your question, the way that it changed was I understood that we had such a broader sense of agency than we did, say, 20 years ago. I think when you just look at things like the PSA and like the difference between that and 12 years ago, and how the stories that are being put out in the indie landscape right now, and the films that are being financed, speaking to people like Anuvalia and Nardeep Gurney, they really invigorated us with a sense of, you have a playground, you can tell the stories you want to, we aren't beholden to the same stereotypes that we always are.
Yeah, like you do your class, I like it. I agree with a lot of that. I started out as an actor, and I come from a very artsy, avant-garde training style. And I think when you get in our world, your idea of how stories can be told gets very rigid, because you start to develop almost like an ideology around the art that you're making. But I think since being out here, since talking to so many different artists, chatting with Wonder Waynes about random movies and stuff that we enjoy, and just that some of our mentors, like you were saying, Nardeep was my mentor. Just the perspectives on people want an opportunity to tell a story rather than the end product necessarily. I don't know if that's a good way to say it. People are really itching for any opportunity to speak and to have what they say be heard, rather than looking for a particular way in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think for me, getting to see Sikhs in journalism was really inspiring. He was my mentor, Gubby, who writes a lot of political news and a lot about Sikhs in journalism. Okay, what was one milestone or skill that pushed you out of your comfort zone during this program?
Definitely, when we were writing the script, I found out about myself, I have a tendency to overthink a lot. Means that they put in many hours into the script, and we were given the prompt to educate, to tell people about Sikh Americans, and it was a blank canvas. It's where do you start? And then what stories do we want to tell? And I remember we literally spent 8 hours at a cafe, just 2 laptops, and just writing and revising. And one thing that I learned from that process as a writer is there's this tendency to feel like you want to explain. There's this tendency to feel like, oh, they're doing this because of this, or oh, I need to cover my base with this. And in the original drafts, it was overwritten a lot. And one of the best things that happened was watching people like Minika and Anthony at production, and how they went about filming the scenes. It really opened up my eyes to, it really is true what they say, less is more when it comes to storytelling. You just need to create a silhouette, and the audience will paint in the pictures themselves.
Yeah, heavy on that. Definitely the writing. I do not consider myself a writer. I have never really written a project like this before. So yeah, there was that one day with our simmers in the coffee shop, but definitely my big milestone of it felt really good to just have somebody that also wanted to just chip away at this thing until it was right. And both of us never really stopped hacking away at it. Even in the past week, we've been sending very minor notes of just tweaking the volume on this one thing, like, but yeah, it's been really cool working in a setting where everyone's game for that kind of nitty gritty.
Okay, you met journalists, filmmakers, actors, and producers throughout this summer. What was one piece of advice a mentor or guest speaker gave you that resonated with you?
I don't know if you guys are familiar with her work, but we got to speak with someone named Anuvalia, and she's a television director. She's known for Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, and she just debuted her first feature called We Strangers. And kind of we had a kind of interview with her, and she kind of provided her guidance. And kind of I sent her an email afterwards, and we were chatting, and one of the greatest pieces of advice, and honestly this isn't just unique to her, I think it's through the whole summer we kept hearing the same thing of you can just do it, you know, just you are surrounded by people who are hungry enough, by people who are your age, you have peers in this space that you can just tell your stories, and that's the most important part. You know, you don't want to die with that feeling of, oh, I should have said this, I should have done this. We want to just create and release and repeat as much as we can.
Yeah, I think similarly, Nadeep Kodri was my mentor for this summer. He directed Atlanta Gold, if any of you have ever seen that. And he was also kind of trying to drill that into me a lot because I was coming at it. I was telling him a lot, like, oh, I feel like I'm an actor, like that's kind of all I do. And he had this way of like trying to explain to me that like it's all a part of the process, and you never really stop developing or changing as a person, as an artist, as a whatever, and getting stuck in these like labels of who am I and what do I want to be kind of like stops you from exploring these other sides of yourself. So actually, since talking to him, like I started like trying to write more and trying to like journal more, just to flex that muscle a little bit. But yeah, the mentors have helped a lot in expanding kind of the thoughts of like what I could do.
One goal of SikhLEAD Media is building a community of Sikh creatives. How has finding other Sikh storytellers influenced your confidence or vision for your own career?
I think this space is incredibly unique and important because I was chatting about this earlier. When I first moved down to LA, I was never more aware of my groundedness than when I first moved down, and I kind of involved myself with South Asian filmmaking orgs, and kind of when I heard about this fellowship and I applied, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know what to expect. That first meeting, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be such a boring summer. I don't know if I'm about to have the time of my life. And walking through the doors, immediately meeting Jabej, a smile broke down my face. Like we connected immediately, and then Mani was introduced, and then our facilitator Hershey, and it was like there were people that were just like me, not just in terms that they were Sikh, but people who loved movies and storytelling and avant-garde, and you know we don't want to tell the same like immigrant pain stories. We have appreciation for the craft of the culture, and we want to show that however much we can. So it's like those moments, like they said, when we were both chipping away at the script, these were the questions we were asking ourselves, and it was such a energizing feeling to be able to write with someone like that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, Alberta said it. I've been itching for a program like this for a while. I think we're at such a right time in our community, and I think being here and meeting so many other Sikh creatives has helped me sort of realize that more. And that we've had a lot of me and our student have been talking about kind of like the old guard of like Sikh creatives that have kind of like laid the foundation and that have done the work to blaze past like some of the glass ceilings. And it feels like there's a lot of like young artists that are really hungry to capitalize on that. And a lot of the old guard that we've met are really hungry to support that in whatever way that they can. So I think being in a community like this has made me realize that not only is it all possible, but we're kind of like, I think we're on the brink of something, like some big explosion. I don't know, in some way. There's so many young up and coming artists.
I also, that actually reminded me of such a feeling that I've been reflecting on. Coming from where I was, like, I come from San Jose, Northern California. My family wasn't too terribly involved in sangat, and coming down here and kind of meeting the age of these people and SALDEF as a whole, it really feels like we have the opportunity of support. But like, for the first time in my life, there are Sikh and Punjabi people wanting to support art, and that I don't know how rare that is. To me, that feels incredibly rare, and it feels like the most important thing to come out of this song.
Representation was a major theme throughout the summer. After this experience, what kind of stories do you think still need to be told about Sikh Americans?
Yeah, to just point about the old guard, I think we're finally at the time in the media that we're creating where, the stories that I want to tell specifically about the Sikh people are stories that transcend borders and transcend faith. It's stories of humanity. We all feel grief, we all feel love, we all feel happiness, we all feel heartbreak, and movies are special because I think they're the most accessible form of empathy in this world. You can read a book, that takes a while. You could listen to a song, you don't have the visuals. Like, a film is 2 hours and you get to step into someone else's shoes. And when you do that, you're able to feel and experience something you would have never gotten to experience. It's like that, I don't know if you guys ever seen it, there's this film called Yee, and they say in that film, like, when movies were invented, we got to live 3 times as many more lives. And when we bring in questions of culture, what stories we want to tell, it's less so about, I need to highlight someone doing this in a specific way to say this. It's more so, I want to weave us within the broader narrative. I want someone to grow up and see a Punjabi person as a love interest. I want someone to see work and feel familiar. Even though if it isn't their culture, if it isn't their faith, I want them to be able to see someone else going down the street and be like, oh, we're the same person, rather than kind of all that animosity that's in the world.
Yeah, I second all of what you just said. I think there's a lot of stories left to tell. Something that actually really interested me about your speech, Kaden, was I feel like in the past few years there's been like a generation flip in leadership, where when I was growing up there was a lot of people who were like parents or something during 9/11. We kind of got that perspective, especially growing up after 9/11, like you gave it from your parents a lot as well. But I think I've heard a few people in leadership positions that are saying they were actually in high school or college during 9/11 recently, and like that perspective is something that's really interesting to me. I think the recent ICE raids and what effect that's had on our community is interesting to me. The truckers that are facing like huge cultural backlash right now is all very interesting to me. These are very real, I guess, political realities. As for like broadly storytelling, I want to see some crazy stuff. I want to see, like, I think it would be cool if we felt the freedom to make like fantasy movies and horror movies and stuff that's a little bit more than slice of life. I think that there's a lot of cultural wealth to draw upon when we're telling stories like this. There's a lot of mysticism within our culture, within Sikh, within the Punjabi folklore that I think is really, I'm going to use right again, right to tap into. And I want to see us digging more into our history to make something new. Yeah.
What was your favorite part about filming the Capstone project on a more PSA note?
Definitely seemed a big start. It was fun to see it come to life. I think when you see your words turn into scenes and you kind of go through it and like, standing behind Nick and seeing on the screen and being like, oh, this is what the shot looks like, oh, this is exactly what we imagined, oh, this is how it's going, and kind of watching the culmination of everything we've done this summer happen. It was my favorite part because it was inspiring. It was like, oh, we could do that. I wonder what else we could do. Like, I can't wait to keep on working on things because this feels like we aced the exam and I feel so much more confident in my own abilities.
Yeah, I think just shooting it was so much fun. I mean, there were so many people there. Like the way that the community all kind of showed up for us on the day was really, really beautiful. Meeting the Chitkadas, my favorite people in the world. I love you guys. That was a lot of fun. Kid was there. Amrita, they were there the whole day. Working with Wandering Winds was like amazing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm a very community-oriented person, and I enjoyed how many different types of people and how many different people came and I just really wanted to be a part of this project and wanted it to succeed. That was really good for me.
What was one moment during filming that people watching tonight would never guess happened behind the scenes?
There's a lot, but I think the one that comes to my brain is definitely in terms of the background, in terms of the Sunday who showed up. We double rolled up a lot of the backgrounds. Like, oh, change of outfit. Okay, now we're gonna put you in here. And I love the way Wandering Winds like shot it and put it together because you can't tell. But like on set, we're like, all right, we need two people for background. Okay, these two were in the scene. Let's just put you in a different outfit. Yeah, so that's kind of happened behind the scenes.
Amrita said we were gonna get tea, so I'll just say there was during the shoe room scene, there was this very disruptive uncle that walked in the middle of shooting and just started yelling about some nonsense. Like he's going on an unhinged rant for like 5 minutes at us, and then just starts poking around in our food, which is it's more than fine, right? To go to it's longer, like that's fine. He's sitting there eating this bagel, and we're like, and Wandering Winds comes up to us and they're like, hey, we actually, the angle that we're about to get goes into that room, so we're gonna need everybody here to clear out. And everybody, of course, clears out except for the uncle who's sitting there. Just, I want to tell you that the bagel wasn't cut like a normal bagel, like it's not 2 sides of the bagel. He cuts the bagel in half, like in half, right? And he's sitting there eating, like taking bites out of it with no cream cheese or anything, just the half of the donut. And we're like, hey, we really need to film here. Like, can you please go to Lumber Hall or something? And he's like, I will not eat this spot. He was like, he said something like, Guru Nanak's Sangat does not leave the Gurdwara. Guru Nanak's Sangat does not leave the Gurdwara until they have eaten. And I was like, I think Guru Nanak's Sangat can also eat in the Lumber Hall. Yeah, so eventually, like, he finishes his bagel, he gets up, he goes. And then he's still like, he's just, kind of looking around our clementines and our juice boxes and stuff. And eventually I think they got full and they left. But yeah, that was happening like the whole time behind the scenes as we were filming that.
What was the biggest lesson you took away from the process of creating the PSA to filming it and seeing it all come together?
I think kind of, like, as I already mentioned, the process of overwriting and wanting to explain everything, or like kind of like when we were writing it, I remember I was like, no, there needs to be like a consistent theme, there needs to be a motif, there needs to be like a transition, like all needs to like line up perfectly. And it's like when you watch the finished product, you realize that you have written more than enough, and B, it's the talent, it's the production design, it's everything that happens in post that really makes it come to life. So I think like always moving forward, that's always just a good lesson of write it how you want to write it, but also trust your creativity and your faith in the process and in post that your intentions will shine through.
Yeah, I think just trust the process and when you're surrounded by a group of like-minded people who have a shared goal, trust those people and trust their expertise and lean on them when you have to and show up. I think, yeah.
All good. After people watch this PSA tonight, what's one conversation that you hope it starts?
One of the goals with this PSA, as we were writing it, was to focus on the newer generation of people like us, of what was our experience being Sikh American and growing up. And, you know, for us, that's why the PSA is written the way it is. It's so much more about returning to culture, especially kind of, at least in our personal experiences, we talk about like growing up and then going to college, and it wasn't, you know, we kind of rebuke our own values until you leave home, until college, and until you move out, that we start realizing like, I want to, at least from my experience, I was like, I want to be Sikh again. Like, I want to start going to the Gurdwara. I want to start, you know, improving my Punjabi. And it was all these little things that we wanted the PSA to hopefully drive a conversation about the new generation, the new landscape. Like, we are facing kind of different, more intangible and emotional kind of concepts that I hope that if we talk about these feelings, it'll make someone feel less alone, because kind of all the media that's out there right now is very much like, it's a lot of it is the pain of immigration, and a lot of it is like familial dynamics, but we wanted to write about how does it feel to come back to something, to make that choice. You know, you might not be the best at speaking Punjabi, but you're showing up every day, and that matters, and that counts. Yeah.
Yeah, I just hope, I hope it like inspires something in people, I guess. Like if somebody sees it and they liked it, I hope they see that like more of that is possible. And if they see it and they didn't, I hope that they, I hope it inspires them to want to make something better. I think like something we talk about a lot was like, I think we need more things to like emulate as kids. Like that's really big growing up when you can look at a screen and say like, oh, I want to be like that, and you have something to chase and something to aspire to. I hope in some small way it does that for people.
On a closing note, 1 year from now, what do you hope you'll be doing, and how did SikhLEAD Media help get you there?
I hope that I still have the privilege to be making movies. Hopefully to be working with Bonnie and Jathej, and hopefully to be using these kind of friendships that we've made during the summer, and the mentors that SikhLEAD connected us with. It's kind of like now we have into the industry, and I hope that with the future projects, it'll all be like, you know, we have things to send people. Like, oh, I'm working on this, can you help me? Like, we have people who are looking out for us, people who want to support us in this journey. So I hope that, you know, in the next year, we're still making movies, and we're still doing it with the support of everyone.